The new ZD aircraft engine. You've got a ton of questions and we have answers. So this is the ZD or Zongshen engine that you guys have probably seen about a year ago show up at the EAA AirVenture Oshkosh. So this is the first time I've laid hands on this. I'm at the North American distributor for this engine. I know you have a lot of questions. We're going to dive deep into that right now. All right, so this is going to be a kind of a longer conversation. There's a lot of questions to ask about this engine, and we're going to do a deep dive into that in just a few minutes. But I want to first introduce you to Richard here, CKD and Zongshen engines, and a little bit of the history of the two companies. Just a short little intro to them, and then we have some questions about how the company operates. So Richard, introduce yourself and about a little bit of the company and Zongshen.
Okay. Richard Kazmarek, originally founder of Aviation Composites, taken over by, sold out to CKD Aero this last year, allowing us to do the expansions. And one of the things that, as we went through and learned with CKD, is they started off in the automotive world. CKD got into the aviation market a couple of years ago, and one of the things that has been an issue is affordable power plants.
Okay.
Zongshen, versus Lycoming, so forth. So the founder of CKD started looking, what else is out there? Rotax makes a beautiful engine. I can't say anything bad about the engine whatsoever, but the price has been escalating. And Arun McGill, who's the CEO of the company, came across Zongshen. Zongshen is a 40-year engine manufacturer. They've been around many years, producing engines for motorcycles, snowmobiles, UAVs. They came out with the CA series of engines, which we're looking at here today, and the price was affordable. It's the engine that I can afford as a builder, and most builders will expect to spend. So the reliability is there. I mean, they have, Zongshen has a definite trust in the engine. They're giving it a 500-hour, 3-year warranty. Which
500 hours.
500 hours, yeah. Which is above and beyond what Rotax offers for the 912.
Okay.
So they have faith in the engine. The engines are tested on site there at Zongshen. Quality control is a utmost importance to them. It's not a quick, fast assembly of the lawnmower engines, which Zongshen imports over 1 million engines a year to manufacturers here in the U.S. for lawnmowers and scooters and
all kinds
of things. So they most people don't realize they may already have a Zongshen engine at their home.
Okay.
Might be in a weed eater, it might be in their lawnmower. So,
all right. So this relationship has been established to essentially import this into the North American market. Correct. Or what markets are you?
So we're covering the North American market. We do have part of Asia with India, because we are a worldwide company. We're not just stationed in Canada and the U.S. We also have facilities in Mexico, India. Germany, there's 9 different locations across the world. So we'll cover those areas if there isn't a distributor there. But right now our focus is North America, being Mexico, Canada, and the U.S., and then of course India. Okay.
So this engine, let's talk about that for a moment. The warranty, obviously, we've seen this with a couple of car companies that are new to the space. That what do you do when you're not known? Mm-hmm. Is you have to guarantee your work.
Right.
All right. So that's
Correct.
why they're trying to go above and beyond for this warranty. But explain, what does that warranty mean? We talked off camera for just a minute about if something breaks, they don't want to just replace that thing. They want the whole thing.
Yeah. If you have a failed cylinder for whatever reason, or something that is not necessarily, just a simple bolt-on like the ignition system, but if you have a cylinder that lost compression, and you're in that warranty period, they want that engine back. They want to know why.
Okay.
So they're going to do replacement of the engine, not repair of the engine. So typically, your dealer, your service center would take that engine in, do the cylinder repair, replacement, send you back, you're back up and going that way. Zongshen's look on it is, we want the engine back. We want to know why did it fail in that warranty period. And the only way you're going to do that is to get it back.
Sure.
So the best way to do this is let's bring it back home and we'll figure out what was going on so that we can do what we need to do. Or let's face it, things fail. I don't care how great your QC is.
It's a mechanical device.
It's a mechanical
made
device.
by man.
Right. And it can fail.
Sure.
But they want to know that it just failed because it's a mechanical piece versus it failed because there's an engineering issue or a quality issue that they missed, and they don't want to be missing those quality issues.
So what are some of the short-term and long-term goals of CKD within the realm of this engine? What is your intent to do? I mean, obviously there's been a couple that have been imported. I think this is number 2 or 3 that have actually hit the U.S. here. There's one flying currently that I know of. It's gained some hours here, but let me back up for a second. This engine has been flying for years outside of the U.S.
Correct.
In aircraft, in UAVs, and they've got roughly how many hours you think on the platform? Whether it's fleets or...
So the ones I know of for hours for matter of fact kind of thing is there's a couple that are in Europe, I believe France it is, on the G1, which is an airplane we also we import and sell. On the G1 they've now crossed that 600-700 hour marks with those engines. So we know there's a few of them out there. I don't know of any that have broke the 1,000 hour mark. Now, straightforward. We're hoping to find that, but we don't know. Right now we're working to introduce ourselves to all the other dealers worldwide so that we can have a good relationship with them, but we can also keep track of what's going on so we can learn history.
All right, I'm gonna pop in here real quick to talk about our sponsors. As you know, I can't do this all on my own. We got to have somebody to help fuel that truck. We try really hard to work with sponsors that provide a good service and a good quality product. So let's talk about those guys right now. Dynon Avionics at Dynon.com, the premier provider of glass panel avionics systems for experimental and light sport aircraft. Wide Open Door Company at WideOpenDoorCo.com, your premier destination for high-quality doors, including aircraft hangar doors. Warp Drive Propellers at WarpDriveInc.com, providing quality, solid carbon fiber propellers for many light sport and experimental aircraft. And visit our website at ExperimentalAircraftChannel.com for new videos and easy-to-navigate playlists and so much more. Speaking of fueling that truck, if you guys want to join us on our Patreon page, become patrons of this channel, just search on Patreon for Experimental Aircraft Channel. Sign up. There's several different levels, so check that out. So aside from the customer installed or even some of the manufacturers installed aircraft that are gaining hours and fleet hours, this is ASTM certified, so they've had their own engine testing on a test platform for some time to be able to meet the requirements of the ASTM. So we'll speak to that for a minute.
So the ASTM is much like an ISO certification. So it's a quality standard, and it's a standard that shows everything is built in a specific way. You don't deviate from it. If it calls out for XYZ bolt, you can't use ABC bolt in its place, even though they're the same. You've got to keep everything the same. So much like the best way to look at it is with our LSA standards here in the U.S. So we have the ELSA and we have the SLSA. So you can buy a Van's RV-12.
Right.
The RV-12, you can buy it as a fly-at-home airplane as an SLSA. If you want to build it as a true ELSA, you have to follow all the specs that Van set up for the SLSA, which means your avionics, everything has to be done just as the SLSA is done. And this keeps a level of quality across the board, so you have a standard.
And this isn't necessarily just a final inspection. You look everything exterior of the engine and it checks boxes and it meets horsepower and whatnot. ASTM says yes. This is literally every component, also internal of the engine, which is several of people's concern is all right, what's in the box? Yeah. Right?
Yep.
So all those parts.
Every part has a specification it has to meet. Under the ASTM standards, they have to meet that specification. You got tolerances of plus minus the thousands or whatever the case may be. It has to stay within that window. by doing that, you don't end up with a piston that's undersized by 40 thousandths and the other ones are oversized by 20 thousandths. They have an unbalanced engine. And
wouldn't fit.
Surprisingly, we found that in Lycomings and Continentals over the years. And these big bore Lycomings don't care. The engines we're accustomed to, they're 100 years old now.
Yeah.
We're still using that same technology today, but it's proven reliability. But they don't have to have the tightest standards that we have to have with these higher revving engines.
Sure. So going back to my original question, that I stepped over my own question there. What are some of the short-term and long-term goals for CKD with Zongshen in this engine platform?
So for us in this engine platform, we want to get these engines here into North America. We want to get the U.S. introduced to them. Mexico, Canada, anybody that is looking for an alternative to the Rotax. We're not going to say we're going to go replace Rotax. We're not. That would be suicidal to say you're going to try to do that. Rotax is a great engine. I can't say a single bad thing about them. But the one thing we want to do is give people something that's more affordable. And by bringing in the Zongshen, we now basically help push as we move forward, and the engine develops more of a history and a reputation. And if we do this properly and we build a good reputation with this engine, we become competition for Rotax, something Rotax hasn't had for years. When the Rotax brought the 912 out, I mean, who else is out there? We now have UL Power, you have Jabiru. I don't know that most people have a fond liking for the Jabiru. I can't say anything really bad about the engine. UL Power, it's so electronically controlled that, like you and I have talked in the past,
it's still gaining its place.
Right. I am not real comfortable with having a computer control my engine. So as time goes, our goal though is to have something that is competitive in that marketplace, that will keeps Rotax in check. Basically, Rotax can just keep upping that price because they'll price themselves right out of the industry. And then the other side of that is as we move forward, our goal is to actually, we're going to bring these engines in as, you and I have talked before, as like a long block, where we will do the final assembly of the engine here and up in Canada as well at our location up in Toronto. What
are the advantages of doing the component versus the complete factory built?
So the fun part of bringing anything in out of Asia are all the taxes, tariffs, and the other things you have to go through. So when we bring an engine in that's a complete assembly, those numbers are, it costs us more money to bring it in. By bringing it in as component-wise, we lessen that cost, so we can help control some of that cost. The other side of it is we now have the ability, we know exactly how this thing is going together, what the specs are. We're going to have to meet the standards that were already set up by Zongshen. So for us to continue on with that ASM certification, we're going to have to meet or exceed what Zongshen has already done.
Okay.
And that is, our goal is always to exceed whenever possible.
Sure. So at the moment, if you were to buy one of these engines, it'll come directly from the factory to you and then distribute out to the customer.
Correct.
Which it has currently the ASTM through them.
Correct.
In the very near future, you'll be ordering these component parts and you have to apply for your own ASTM most likely to be able to meet those same standards. And then in the United States, you'll have that held here.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And of course, when we do that, that helps us out worldwide.
Yeah.
So the ASTM is a certification that is recognized by every country.
And then once you bring that here, you'll have an engine shop created specifically for that, because ASTM is very strict, I assume, just like
Correct.
SLSA, where you have to have probably a room and a shelf and everything dedicated to part numbers that don't get mixed and matched and so forth. So when that happens, then that's going to bring a great opportunity for you to bring people in, since you'll have a location to do some training, and then you're going to have what? Service centers.
We will have service centers. In fact, we're looking for folks now. We're working with a gentleman down in Florida at this moment to take on becoming a service center. He has the interest. He can't get the Rotax service center because too many people around him, but he wants to have something to help supplement what he is doing kit-wise.
Sure.
So we're working with him to get that set up. We will do the training, much like Rotax has the different training classes. We'll do the training to the end user, to the service centers, and help get the service centers set up. And the biggest, our biggest goal is if you do have to go into a service center with your engine, we want you to be able to come in, get the issue resolved, and go home same day with that engine. We don't want the engine sitting there on the shelf for a month waiting on parts. That's one of the things that's been aggravating with the certified world is getting parts for Lycoming, Continental. It's
whatever.
You can be months before you see a part.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to warehouse and stock enough components that not only can we take care of the Zongshens, but we can also help out with the Rotax owners.
Okay. Well, we've introduced you to the company, a little bit of the history of it, and where you're going to be moving forward with this in the near future. So let's go over to the engine and talk a little bit more. You had some questions. I posted this on social not too long ago. You'll have some questions, so I want to answer those questions today. So let's walk over to the engine now.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right, so Richard, over here at the engine, it's always good to be able to see these things in person and look around, walk around, and climb all around them. So I'm going to take a camera here and basically print this whole engine so people can see underneath it and around it. So in case there's any questions they have of, guys, honestly, it's a clone. It's the exact same thing of a Rotax, so it's not anything new and surprising. But so a few questions, and I'll read off the list of some of the questions you all had on social media here. One of them is, are there any commonality to parts that either Rotax currently uses that is on this engine or now would be interchangeable?
Everything on this engine is interchangeable with Rotax.
Okay.
So when you go to the 912 ULS, it will interchange. From the carburetors, the ignition, the intakes, heads, pistons. So it is a true clone.
Okay. So that being said, there are some things I'm sure even Rotax has off the shelf, and those are going to be the same as this.
The ignition modules are off the shelf, your carburetors are off the shelf, stators, starters. Those are the items that every engine manufacturer, they're going to find somebody else that has already produced.
Why reinvent the wheel? Right.
Yeah, correct.
So that'll be true for both electrical and electronic components.
Correct.
Maybe they make their own wiring harness, but
they'll make their own harness that may attach to the engine. But beyond that, the actual components themselves are an off-the-shelf, common-made part.
Okay. And these are not being carburetors, but they're a similar style.
They're a similar style. They interchange with the Bing. Unfortunately, I don't know who the manufacturer is. That was the one thing that I haven't found out yet.
Okay.
I am going to work on that, but they're a motorcycle carburetor, same as what we're using on the 912 or any of the Rotax. It's just a slide bore carburetor.
Pressure compensating.
Pressure compensating. They've been around for 100 years as well. So, yep.
Okay. So one of the questions we had, if you look at this engine right away, you can see it's a different color, all right? And at first glance, I was thinking this is the casting. It's a darker casting. So then I made a question of like, what is the metallurgy of this and why is it darker? You just found out some information this morning to combat that or clarify that, and why is it?
So the engine case is darker because Zongshen coats the engine. So it's like for here in the U.S., a product that's well known is Cerakote. So it's a high temp paint, basically, that will coat the engine. It'll protect the aluminum from corrosion. And they do that after the casting is done. This is why you'll find the polished areas. So the parts are cast, then they go to paint, then they go to machining.
So truth be told, I mean, now seeing this in person up close, it's really hard to tell that this isn't the casting. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that this is a paint. Yeah. So it's a really good finish. It's a machine. It's like a matte finish to it. But they've come back afterwards, I guess, and machined certain parts. And you look at that is a normal aluminum that you would see on any other engine. So just again, at first glance, like, why is this a different color? So it's just simply paint.
Yeah, in fact, because of that, and with what we want to do is bringing in the sub-assemblies, Zongshen has now said, well, what color would you like these engines to be? So we can get these in a different, we can choose colors. in order for us to do that, though, we have to do quantity. You know,
Right.
they're not going to do one blue, one red, one green, you know, kind of thing. So we have to do a quantity of them.
Hugger orange Chevy or
that'd be, man, that's my heart here. I'm definitely a GM fan, but it'll probably stay to a neutral color because let's face it, we love to doll up our airplanes. So you want to have, you know, we take the cowling off. You know, CKD's colors are orange, green, and red.
Okay.
I don't want to take the cowling off and look at an orange engine. You know, as much as I love Hugger orange on GM, I really don't mention that color.
So about how many years has this engine, this platform, been in production?
So I actually found, you know, I thought this platform started in 2018. It actually started in 2014. Is when they started down this road with these engines. Of course, then we went through the whole COVID and things, you know, slowed up everywhere. But so they've been producing these engines for the UAV market now, starting in about 2014.
Okay, and this model, let's say, like in engineering terms, you know, you do a lock in on engineering and that kind of stuff. From what model year do you think this would be a clone of a Rotax? Somewhere around 2021?
So by the standards right now, it's a clone from about 2018.
Okay.
Is the production, you know, what we have come to determine to be the production time.
Because to me, it's a very important question. As you guys know, some of the history of Rotax, there's some things that changed. Like, I don't know if it was pre-2009 or 2007 that the case changed. It went to a heavier case because there were some fretting issues between the two halves. I think it was in 2013, 2014-ish, the ignition module changed to like a soft start where it advanced and retarded timing. So that's, to me, is an important question. Like, where do they lock this in?
And earlier yet, my brother-in-law has the 912 on his Rans. His engine isn't rebuildable because they no longer make the stator that is there. Because somewhere in mid-90s they changed, and that stator is no longer available. So it makes his engine non-rebuildable.
Gotcha.
At this point, because there's just no parts availability.
So this engine is basically a best of the best from right around 2018, 2019.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so let's move into some of the maintenance things of this. Obviously, it should be identical, but like for starters, the 5-year hose and rubber, I assume you're going to have the exact same thing here, but will you create a kit for it and upgrades? Like now, I think there's options to have silicone hoses that are like lifelong.
Yes.
Talk to that.
Yeah, we will do the same thing for this engine as was done with the Rotax. And of course, the reality is even on the Lycomings and Continentals, every 7 years you should be replacing all your hoses. So this is not actually a new thing. They're just doing it every 5 years, and it seems to be a bit costly. Is what I have seen from the Rotax world. Is everybody is like it's just too much for what you're doing.
Right.
So we will create a kit for it. We will have a kit for it, I should say, that will allow even the Rotax owners to do it for the Rotax and do it at an affordable, something a little more affordable moving forward. So we will look for that lifetime hose. I don't know that really anything is truly lifetime these days.
Lifetime-ish.
Yes. Yeah.
The silicone hoses and stuff like that.
By doing that, honestly, I've disagreed with some of this stuff in the past, but now looking forward and having been involved with this like I have been, a lot of things start to make sense. Replacing a hose every 5 years, I'm guaranteeing that I should not have a problem with that down the road. I shouldn't have an in-flight failure of a hose because I know what the age of that hose is.
Yeah.
So there's advantages to doing it, and it's minor.
Minor investments.
It's just a little bit of safety.
Yeah.
So why not do it?
Sure. So on the gearbox, on the maintenance on that, I know there's like a shim in there that you have to check for the friction on that and stuff like that.
Correct.
Will there be some training or a maintenance kit for all that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the one thing we want to make sure we do with these engines, especially once we go to doing the actual assembly here in North America, is we want, one, proper training. Two, we want to have a kit for anything. Whatever needs to be done with these engines to keep them reliable and keep our customers safe and a long life, we want to have the kits available so that people can do it and do it at the increments that it needs to be, should be done.
So that would be one thing that will definitely cross over, just doing general maintenance, whether it's oil changes or whatnot, oil filters, that you'd be able to supply parts at a better price.
A better price, correct. Something, some people are, I'm on the automotive side with my GM vehicles, I buy everything GM. I don't want the aftermarket part. Main reason being is it's been on my vehicle, 250,000 miles on my truck. It's lasted this long, why would I not do it again?
But if you want to use a FRAM or a Purolator,
absolutely. It's if you want to use it, you can use it. You have to do what's going to make you comfortable. You and I have had discussions about engines, in the past, just on the phone. I won't fly behind every engine that's out there. They may be great engines, but if you're not comfortable with what you put on the front of your airplane, you're not going to fly it. Mm-hmm. So, I want people to be comfortable. We want people to be comfortable with making this choice, and we want to show that we're going to be comfortable. This engine is actually going to go on my Fisher Celebrity. I'm putting more engine on a little biplane that the engine's worth more than the airplane is.
Right.
But how else am I going to show that I have faith and trust in this engine? I'm going to
put your butt in the seat.
I'm going to get my butt in that seat.
You put your butt in the seat.
Yep.
So just a quick walk around of this engine, just trying to see what might be different or just quality control. One of the things I did notice is that they use RTV on the valve cover, and also I see some RTV around the fuel pump, which actually has a gasket.
Yes.
And that. So obviously this is a high production engine now, and there's some things that maybe they do for production. Can you explain? The valve covers, I know for a fact there's O-rings typically,
correct, and
O-rings don't usually need RTV.
Correct.
So why do I see that on the side of this engine?
Production-wise, it's quicker and easier to just do the RTV. You can do that, fill with the RTV and assemble, and you don't have to worry about whether you pinch that seal. O-rings. Have you ever put an O-ring in something? You get it all tightened up, and then realize, my favorite one's the tires on aircraft. You get it, in, you fill it up, and realize you have now pinched the tube.
Okay.
You can do the same thing with an O-ring. So when the customer pulls them off and goes to do maintenance, service, whatever, at that point they can go back with the RTV. They can go back with the
clean that off and put a typical
they can put the
O-ring
O-ring in there if they want to put the O-ring. Yes.
Okay. So there might be a few things that you might see in a production that are done for production, but later when you maintenance that you will just put it back to what you normally do.
Correct.
Okay. So there's a few things to look out for that as far as just differences in
less chances of oil leaks.
All right, so I hope that answers a few of your questions about this engine. You really can't tell it apart other than the color of it, but I did an interview with the guy, the only one that I think is flying in North America right now, which is Matt. It's the Matt channel, 2 M's. If you want to look him up on YouTube, we did an interview very recently on his aircraft that was focused more on his aircraft and his channel and where he flies and a little bit about him and just a little bit of the engine. He and I actually did a much longer talk and conversation about his installation and his experience with the engine so far. So I will link that video in the description below this video if you want to go check out that conversation that Matt and I had specifically to this engine. In the meantime, where can everybody reach out to you to learn more about how they can get one of these and also follow the growth and new exciting things that CKD is going to be doing?
So you can find us on Facebook with CKD.Aero and CKD Aerospace. We also have Instagram and LinkedIn under the same names, or go to CKD.Aero website. And from the website, you can actually look at the actual pricing and of all the kits, engines. We have the site's constantly growing, so we're always adding new products and bringing new things to market. So,
all right, again, guys, I tried to answer the questions that when I posted this on social to make sure that we got your questions in there. If you have more after this video, leave us some comments below, of course, and we'll document those. We're going to be doing another episode here in the near future, probably after they bring this stuff in-house, This year, we're bringing back Engine Week, which is going to be towards the end of the year. So they will be included in the Engine Week series this year. And I'd like to, again, answer all of your questions. So keep those coming, and we'll try to get all the questions answered in the next episode of Engine Week.
And hopefully we'll be able to stick you in that airplane, take you for a ride behind this engine.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you in the next episode.